Hi, my name is Lakshya Dang, and I'm going to be introducing our project, Bridging the Digital Divide in Indigenous Communities. Now, what is the digital divide? Well, the digital divide can be described as the gap between individuals, households, businesses, and geographic areas at different socioeconomic levels with regard to their access to information and communication technologies, or ICTs for short. To put it simply, it's a divide between people at different socioeconomic levels in terms of internet access. Now, there is no one digital divide though. It consists of a myriad of factors working together to put some communities at a disadvantage when compared to others. For example, availability plays a big role. Is there available access to the internet in your area? Or is there a nearby point of connection to the internet? We then have affordability, and that talks about, is that access affordable? Can a person in your specific community afford access to the internet? For quality of service, we think about, is the quality of the connection sufficient to meet the needs of the users in those communities? For relevance, we look at, does the connected community have the necessary skills and technologies to use the internet? Are there locally available mobile apps? Is there content in the local language? And is that content relevant to the people in the community? We also have additional divides like security, interconnectivity, and literacy that play a huge role in further widening this divide. In terms of the effects, we see that lack of access to ICTs means exclusion from healthcare information and resources. It means decreased economic opportunities and job opportunities for people in those communities, and also people being denied the educational benefits of the internet.
Hi, this is Tilly. The digital divide significantly impacts Indigenous communities due to their geographic isolation and their lack of internet connectivity. This gap hinders their access to essential resources and opportunities, especially in respect to education, democratic engagement, and healthcare systems. In terms of education, Indigenous communities face barriers of unreliable internet, creating limited access to online educational platforms and digital libraries, which are both essential in today's learning. This limitation not only interrupts academic opportunities, but it also disrupts the pursuit of learning and skill development. As a result, Indigenous peoples struggle to compete in an increasingly digital global economy, perpetuating cycles of disadvantage. Democratic engagement also suffers due to the digital divide. Without internet access, staying informed and participating in democratic processes becomes increasingly difficult. Online voting, research, and social activism, all of which are venues from which one's voice can be heard, are impacted and silenced due to being out of reach. The lack of access removes Indigenous political participation, furthermore impacting crucial conversations and decisions that affect their lives and communities. Healthcare is lastly another area heavily impacted by the digital divide. Remote Indigenous communities lack opportunities and support and access to healthcare resources. Telemedicine, online mental health support, and digital health information are essential tools in this modern healthcare and remain inaccessible. This gap not only accelerates poor physical health, but also contributes to a rise in mental health issues. Without these resources, Indigenous communities face an increased risk of health disparities, which further promote a cycle of poverty and inequality.
Hello, my name is Ian Hellam.
Now that we've gone over the problems, we should now look at some potential solutions to closing the digital divide. A major part of solving this problem requires cooperation from the government, especially in terms of funding. Government subsidies are needed to help soften the blow of having to spend exorbitant amounts of money that rural Indigenous communities simply do not have the resources to sustain for an extended period of time. Additionally, government subsidies could be used to incentivize telecom companies such as Rogers, TELUS, Bell, etc. to build internet infrastructure in rural Indigenous communities, as a large majority of the time for these telecom companies, there simply is not a big enough profit motive to create this infrastructure. As mentioned earlier, many rural Indigenous communities simply do not have the resources to sustain a high-speed internet connection, although this has not stopped quite a few from trying, and some have successfully created their own networks. However, as Indigenous communities grow, the cost of running these networks will grow in tandem larger and larger, especially if the locally run network plans to include connections to a majority of the houses in the area. Thus, again, the government could help support the networks either by providing some of the necessary materials to help with the improvements of the network, or, like mentioned before, simply provide funding to the local networks to help soften the blow. One of the problems mentioned in the sources was that, after having built these networks, there was no one to help service the network, which could lead to extended periods of time with little to no internet connection. Part of the solution was also mentioned in the same source, with some of the local networks train their own technicians on how to service the networks. However, if a large telecom company was to set up in the community, then the techs from the large network would have to be flown in, which could cause delays. There are a couple ways to solve this. First, have it so that a technician from the telecom company could remain in the community on standby. However, this could lead to problems if that tech left the company or got fired, or any myriad other reasons. Or instead, train a local Indigenous technician such that if the internet connection fails, it is easy and quick to fix that issue. The last solution would be for the government to directly create jobs which would focus on either the creation of or sustaining of created networks in rural Indigenous communities. However, this is more along the lines of a large telecom company having their own techs on standby, which could lead to the same problems as mentioned before. While the government would not need as much incentive to provide subsidies to these communities, as precedent has already been set where grants have been given to Indigenous communities before to set up their own telecom networks, the benefits of greater internet access in Indigenous communities leading to increased participation in the digital economy and increased ability for Indigenous peoples to access digital resources should provide enough of an incentive beyond reaching the stated goal of 50 megabytes download, 10 megabytes upload, stated as the universal goal by the government.
Hi, my name is Delaney Smart.
In conclusion, the digital divide across various areas of life, including education, democratic engagement, and healthcare, highlights the urgent need for solutions. Indigenous communities have limited access to online educational resources, making it difficult to pursue knowledge and skills for individuals, hindering their socioeconomic advancement and mental health outcomes. Addressing these systematic challenges by government subsidized can incentivize large telecom companies to expand infrastructure into rural and remote areas, bridging the digital gap and improving access to essential online services. Simultaneously, funding directed towards community-oriented telecom networks can empower local initiatives to provide tailored solutions that meet the specific needs of underserved populations. Additionally, government-sponsored education programs in collaboration with telecom companies can equip local technicians with the necessary skills to maintain and optimize the telecommunication systems, ensuring sustainable access to online resources in remote regions. By implementing such measures, governments can work towards fostering a more inclusive and equitable society where all individuals, regardless of geographic location or socioeconomic status, have equal opportunities to thrive and participate actively in the digital age. It is important to prioritize these initiatives to mitigate the widening disparities and realize the full potential of the digital technology in advancing social progress and collective well-being.